and thank you for joining us for Northwest Newsweek. I'm Riley McManus. Flooding continues to plague communities across the Northwest, with states of emergency being declared in Red Lake, Kenora, and Fort Francis. Several area highways have been closed as a result of high water levels, which have also put strains on water management plans in several communities, threatening both residents and infrastructure. Adam Riley has the latest.
This is what the waterfront in Dryden looked like on Monday, with water just beginning to creep over the sides of the walkway that runs along the Wabigoon River. And by Wednesday, it had completely submerged. This only represents a tiny, calm snapshot of the situation, as less than 100 meters away, a raging torrent flows. At the top of the Domtar Dam, the water is almost cresting over the structure as it attempts to regulate the flow. A release from the company says due to the recent melt and large amount of rainfall, the water levels have exceeded the upper threshold set out by the province. Dryden Mayor Greg Wilson is concerned as everyone is in what he calls a damned if they do, damned if they don't situation.
From what I'm hearing, that of course the problem is if they try and reduce the water flow because there's so much flooding downstream from the dam, then they risk increasing the water levels and putting pressure on their dam infrastructure as well, right? If they're holding back that much volume of water. But if they let it go, then it's going to cause more problems downstream.
Dryden CAO Roger Nesbitt says the dam is trying to hold the line to protect homes and infrastructure downstream, noting area highways, including Highway 17, the railway, and the Wainwright generating station are all in imminent danger. It's a similar situation downstream from the Eagle River Hydro Dam, where the outflow has caused Highway 17 to be flooded and at times entirely closed. Currently, fire crews from the MNRF have been providing sandbags to residents in those unorganized townships affected by flooding. Meanwhile, the Agamak River, which runs through Ignace, threatens to crest over several culverts in that community. A real concern lies with Agamak Lake, which is still predominantly frozen. A quick melt could threaten lakeside homes and other municipal assets.
We are monitoring it very, very closely. One of the things we're thinking about doing is taking some of the water, because the culvert isn't big enough to take the flow, putting some pumps in there and pumping the water right over the road and into the creek on the other side and giving it a hand and see if we can maybe do something that way.
Lucas is also worried that ice flows could break loose and jam up culverts. On Wednesday, a release from the town of Fort Francis states it has updated its emergency declaration to include flooding and begun sandbagging operations. Additionally, the town of Atikokan is monitoring outflows from area lakes that flow into the Atikokan River and through the community. Adam Riley, TBT News.
A flood warning is still in effect in the Thunder Bay area. Water levels rose again overnight on Thursday, bringing the two-day total to between 34 and 50 milliliters, depending on the location. Though the latest from the region's Conservation Authority states that those water levels continue to decline and will be further reduced throughout the weekend. Additionally, a number of highways in the Northwest remain closed due to flooding. In the western reaches of our province, the city of Kenora has issued an evacuation order for residents north of the bypass for all roads north of the Portier Bridge. An evacuation center has been put in for residents who need a place to stay, and city crews are working to secure a corridor for safe exit out of the area. Residents have been asked to gather their belongings and evacuate by 6:30 Friday evening. After that, there will be no exit or entry. With flooding wreaking havoc all over the region and the ongoing evacuation of Saskatchewan and Fort Albany, another First Nation is also under a state of emergency. High water levels during the spring ice breakup have damaged the water pumping station in Martin Falls, leading to issues with their drinking water. Lee Noonan has more.
The pump station that supplies water to Martin Falls was destroyed by ice that came much farther up the bank than normal. Water levels have since subsided, and a temporary pump has been assembled that is now feeding the community's water treatment plant. And Chief Bruce Achnepanescum says half the battle is won, but he says the water quality is still unsafe.
Children and some of the members started breaking out in rashes and sores due to use of that untreated water. And, part of the reason why we declared that state of emergency was to actually ask for an evacuation of the most vulnerable population in our community.
Achnepanescum says they've received no firm decision on whether there will be an evacuation. He expects to hear something on Monday. In the meantime, he's advising residents to boil all their water and seek medical attention right away if needed.
The nurses up there do a remarkable job, but we don't have doctors in the community readily available, and we're not able to see them. We have doctors that come in maybe once or twice a month for very short periods of time, but this is an urgent matter, and we're looking to have our people that are afflicted by these conditions treated.
Grand Chief Derek Fox says the crisis in Martin Falls is one of many throughout NAN territory and that it's typical for slower moving problems like water quality, mental health, or even COVID to get a slower response from government.
But the slow ones are the mental health issues. So this is almost like, okay, well, no one's really dying. You might have suicides, you might have someone losing their life to COVID, but for some reason those situations are not taken as serious, right? And it's left upon the community to deal with it oftentimes.
Achni Penescum says it could take months before a new permanent pump station is built and weeks before the situation stabilizes enough that water quality is restored to previous levels, which were still not potable. The community has been under a boil water advisory since 2005. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
As flooding continues across the Northwest, the infrastructure in the communities continues to take the bare brunt of it, and at times has failed, resulting in road closures. In Ignace, while all eyes are on several culverts which channel the very swollen Agamak River through the community, Pine Street has been closed due to a partial collapse of one of its many smaller culverts. And while no major replacement of asphalt will be required, the roadway is still expected to be out of commission for at least 2 weeks, according to Mayor Penny Lucas.
We are in the process of putting the culvert together because we're going to have to dig the old culvert out and then put a new culvert in. So that one's going to have to take a little bit of time.
Fortunately for residents and visitors, the road closures does not affect access to any homes or municipal amenities. Meanwhile, several highways across the Northwest have either been closed or had travel advisories placed on them due to high water levels or washouts. As of Friday, several northern communities remain cut off from the region, including Ear Falls and Red Lake. The search for unmarked graves will soon get underway at the site of a former residential school here in northwestern Ontario. The Wajishkaniggum Nation near Kenora will begin that process with a special ceremony on Monday. The St. Mary's Indian Residential School operated in the community from 1897 to 1972. More than 6,100 children from several First Nations in the Northwest and Manitoba attended the institutions. Records from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission show at least 36 of those children never made it home, but survivors believe that number is much higher. The search is being led by a survivors group from the school. Wajishkaniggum Nation is getting almost $3 million over 3 years from the province in Ottawa to undertake the archaeological investigation. And when we come back, our coverage of the 2022 provincial election begins.